Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to episode 3 of American Barbell Unleashed. I'm here today with Sergio Oliva Jr., and we're going to be discussing everything that he's got in front of him and our new collaboration going forward. So stay tuned for some great info.
All right. Look at us.
Look at us. Great to see you. How's everything?
Thanks, Phil. No, it's great. I'm glad that we're doing this. I'm glad that we met, really, honestly. I think this is going to be the start of a very big future.
It is definitely. So, all right, we're in for a good one today. We're here with Sergio Oliva Jr., who's trained just about everywhere on the planet. A lot of history, and so happy to welcome you to the American Barbell team.
Thanks. It means a lot. I know that this isn't a big thing for you guys, having athletes and stuff like that. I know that it's very limited, and you're very precise on the people you want on the team. Even just in your circle, not even just on the company. So even to be a part of the circle, let alone the team, it means a lot.
Yeah, it's all about passion, and I think that's where we have similar paths. Everything I've ever done has been about passion, building the best products on the planet. It's all I've ever lived for. So obviously, you can't be in the sport you're in if you're not the same way.
Not for a long time anyway. Yeah. I think there's a lot of people that get into bodybuilding. But the longevity, I think, is a very rare thing in the sport. That's the hardest part for people to understand. The slow path, the tortoise is the way to go. And I'm sure that's how it is with making the machines and the equipment. I'm sure you can knock out a bar or a dumbbell really quick if you wanted to, but it's probably going to come back.
No doubt.
In a bad way.
No doubt. Yeah, it takes a lot of thought, a lot of patience. And I tell people all the time, you can't accelerate time to testing and everything else. So I wanted to ask you, you've been on the road a lot lately. What has your past several months been like?
Well, getting back on stage after, I know it seems like a long time for people, but I only took a year off. But me and my wife were living in Spain, and I wanted to stay there, honestly. But with Ukraine and Russia and everything that's going on there, they're not giving any visas. So I had to leave. She could stay because she's from Europe. So I was like, well, let's just move to the States and let's try and get back on stage and get this competition going. But I had got injured. I had injured my shoulder and my ankle really bad. So it just sucked. I've been injured in the past. And then what you just do is you just train the muscles that you aren't injured. But me injuring my leg and my upper body, it was rough. It was just not only tough to even deal with not training, but even I couldn't walk around. My wife had to help me, go to the bathroom, stuff like that.
Wow.
And here I am supposed to be moving out to Dubai to come back, to go to the Olympia, to have this whole fiasco in Dubai happen where I got into a car accident and, they put me in jail over there. And it was just really crazy. And it's just one of those things where I didn't do anything wrong. But as Americans, we're so used to due process and the way we do things. If you're innocent, until proven guilty. And in the UAE, everybody goes to jail. And they'll sort it out later. And I was a couple weeks out from a competition. And it was really rough to handle. And honestly, in the beginning, it was just rough because as a bodybuilder, it's really hard to balance being a person and a bodybuilder. As a bodybuilder, I was distraught that I wasn't able to do the show. I'm so worried about diet and all this really non-important things. And really, in reality, someone had died. And so that kind of really brought me back to being able to understand that this is what I do, but there's other bigger things in the world. So once I was able to get out of Dubai and everything was all taken care of and it was done, that's why we moved to Spain. And I went to go train with Dorian Yates, which for people that don't know, he's a 5-time Mr. Olympia.
Oh yeah, legend for sure.
For sure. And the master of heavy duty besides Mike Mentzer. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to go train, with his tutelage. And we moved out there. And then when I got injured and we had to move back to come full circle, we moved to Vegas. And I lived in California, really, majority of my life. It's just.
Where was that in California?
Well, of course, I did the Venice thing when I first, got my pro card. Everybody goes.
Got to be a Gold's Gym.
I'm very grateful that I did just pack up, leave Chicago, and go to live in Venice, because I was able to catch the end of the actual Gold's Gym Venice. Now it's just a complete dump. It's just a really bad gym in the area, and LA in general is just really bad. But I was able to catch the end. I trained with Sean Roden, him getting ready for when he won the Olympia. It was really cool that my workout partner was Mr. Olympia. I trained with Dexter Jackson, Charles Glass is out there, as everybody knows. So that was where I first started. But the majority of time I spent, to answer your question, was in San Diego. So that's really where I wanted to move back to. But now it's just so expensive. So I told her, you know what, let's move to Vegas, which I've never spent any time here. I feel like I've never spent any time in Nevada, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I just come for the Olympia and I leave. You know, you do a weekend with the buddies. And
vacation destination.
That's it. But I hate the Strip. It's not my thing. Partying is not my thing. And I just knew that this is the best place for bodybuilding right now. And it is going to be the Mecca. So I told her, let's move there just temporarily, like even just a year.
Sure.
And as soon as I got here, I realized, man, I should have moved here sooner. When I was in California and everybody left California to move here, I was like, oh, I'm not moving to Vegas. There's no way. But now that I'm here, it's just so incredible, the environment for bodybuilding, especially while it's in the same area as the most party area. You know, you tell people that don't know anything about bodybuilding, you're moving to Vegas for bodybuilding, and it's like, that doesn't make any sense.
I think you've lost your mind. Well, as long as you don't have gambling or drinking problems, you're fine.
Yeah, luckily my addiction is only just trying to win shows and fulfill this legacy that I'm trying to do. So when I first got here, I was injured. I couldn't train. I was very small, I was probably like 60, 65 pounds less than what I am now.
Wow.
And it's just part of it, you know, especially my body wants to go back to being an ectomorph. Very skinny. I ran track and I swam and I was a water polo almost my whole entire life. I didn't even touch a weight until I was 22. Most people are training in their teens or even in high school.
Right.
And my dad just wouldn't let me work out. He was very against it. And I think his whole foreigner, immigrant ideology is that I'm going to come to this country, my son's going to be a doctor or a lawyer, you know, something better than him. And I think that his way of just being able to deal with things, of his way or the highway, it's just, we clashed. And once I realized I wanted to do bodybuilding, and even when he would call gyms in Chicago and not let me join the gyms, like I even found this one gym that there's no way that he's going to know about it. It's in the middle of nowhere in a basement. And no, he found out about it and he called and they stopped me from training. So it's just crazy to come now full circle, and where I was injured, and then to answer the question in a long way, I finally got back on stage. So it seemed like a long time, but it was only a year. But I really wanted to compete last year at the Olympia. It's tough to see people that are your friends, you know, it's almost like you're sitting outside of the party looking in, you know, and all your friends are having a good time at the Olympia, let alone the people that I beat, you know. So it's the most hard pill to swallow, is when you beat people and you see them doing better than you. And it's not like I chose the wrong path or I'm not being serious. I just got injured, you know, and it's just part of the game. So being here and having all these great gyms in Vegas and the connections that I've met, including you, it's just proof that everything happens for a reason, and how I was really reluctant to come to Vegas. And now I'm so happy. And now we're starting this partnership together. It's just really cool how life works.
Yeah, it is. You know, it's interesting when you talk about being injured and somebody at your level, and when you're injured and you have to take that much time off, you just shrink like crazy. Yeah. How does that work?
Yeah, exactly. My body is a skinny little kid, you know,
and it just goes back, but it comes back fast, right?
It does come back fast. Yeah. Unfortunately, the guys that I'm going against didn't take a break.
That's the problem.
So yeah, that's the hardest part. But the thing is with being injured is it's on your own to decide, you know, like even if I went to a doctor, even if a doctor tells me you can lift at this amount of time, unless that doctor does bodybuilding, they realistically are only giving medical advice. One that mostly makes sure that they're not getting in trouble. You know, you don't want to, like, a doctor's never going to give you advice that you can go back a little bit sooner than they think you should, because it's only going to come back on them. So they're always going to give you longer. But also on the opposite side, you see a lot of bodybuilders get injured and they come back too quick. And now they have this lingering injury for the rest of their life, or it never really got fixed.
Right, never heals.
You know, and it's almost like, like I keep saying, the tortoise and the hare. And it's almost like the hare, right, he fixes his injury, but he comes back too fast. And yeah, he's still moving fast, but after a while, it's going to break.
Right.
And
never fully recover.
So I think that was the hardest part. I didn't have someone telling me, you're okay to train. I had to do it on my own. I don't want to come back too fast. But I don't want to I don't want to take too much time off. These
Sure.
guys are getting way ahead of me. But I think that I did it correctly. Even Dorian was telling me to just continue training. And I think because, anyone who follows bodybuilding, he was injured getting ready for the Olympia. There's a lot of videos of him training in a sling. He had torn his bicep. But the same thing I told him is the rest of his body was still Mr. Olympia. He had already won 3 times. I'm just trying to win a show and get to the Olympia.
Right.
So me taking that time off, being injured, it's not like I can really just hop into a show. So now looking back, I'm so thankful that I listened to my body and listened to myself because I'm completely healed now. I have no, it was so bad I couldn't put deodorant on. I could not lift my arm up that high to get my arm underneath.
Well, that's the long-term play. That's the hard part, because if you don't heal, then it's impossible to come back sometimes.
Mm-hmm. And still, my injury was I just fell. It was just an accident. It wasn't anything like that. And that's why it's really great to see what you do with your equipment, because look, there's a lot of people that get injured in the gym.
Right.
And yes, they're doing stupid stuff. Those people get injured from that. Some people get injured from the equipment.
Oh, sure.
And it's just really crazy to think that you're trusting something or trusting this facility or this equipment. And really, when they were making it, they kind of just half-assed it, like we were talking earlier, like you don't. And that was it. That could be their career, and you're over.
Well, that's it. And, our industry, for some reason, has bypassed the requirement to have any knowledge. It completely blows me away. And so I live for education. Everything I ever learned about building equipment, I learned from the top metal experts, biomechanical people. And, it helps that I've always been a neurotic, crazy guy for quality. And that's key. And so when I see somebody like you, or if I build equipment for a professional athlete, a football player, basketball player, or whatever, those are the last people you want to hurt. Somebody with $100 million contract, something like that. This is a long-term play. So I get really frustrated at the people that just jump in, and I feel bad for the end user, whether it's the gym buyer or somebody in their garage, whatever. It's buyer beware. They don't know who they're dealing with. It's like choosing a bad doctor. Right. It's terrible.
Yeah.
So our industry's got a lot to learn, but it's a fun industry. I love it. And I'm really happy that we teamed up. You and I had conversations about, Gold's Venice. I had put product in Gold's Venice in 1998. And I had asked you about it. I had asked Phil Heath when I saw him, and I made a joke about, hey, have you ever been to Gold's Venice? Ha ha. And then, him and Ronnie Coleman, everybody talked about, I've used your equipment for years. And as I've told so many people, being an OEM manufacturer, that means I'm the behind the scenes guy. So many people didn't know that it was me behind so many different companies or brands. And I really appreciated when you and I first met, you talked about you wanted to help me get my brand out and let people know who I was. That's my goal in life, just to be known, not for bragging rights. It's more to say, I've done this and I've put in the test of time.
Yeah, I just think a lot of bodybuilders, we just walk in the gym and we just grab the iron. We don't know who it's made by. We know if it feels good or not, or if it's falling apart, maybe leaves pieces of iron stuck in your hands or stuff like that, or maybe you're benching over and a couple of them fly into your eye, and it does happen.
The old chrome dumbbells. I had that conversation with somebody today about how there's companies today talk about the novices that are reintroducing chrome dumbbells. Well, chrome dumbbells went out in the Hogan Health days in the late 70s, early 80s, because people would bang these dumbbells together and they'd actually get chrome flakes in their eyes and cut corneas, crazy stuff. And I don't know how deep we want to get into this, but I had another person call me and was telling me about a company I'd never heard of that made a chrome dumbbell that, instead of having a nice radius on the outer edge, and we do that as a manufacturer for multiple reasons. You want it to feel comfortable on your legs when you're resting those dumbbells. But this dumbbell in particular was manufactured with a sharp edge, and somebody dumped the rack, and somehow this lady's hand was in the way, and this dumbbell came down and cut her finger right off. I mean, I just went, whoa. And so again, buyer beware, novice beware, whatever you want to say. So yeah, a lot of hazards to be thinking about.
So yes, when we were first talking, it bothered me that a lot of even just pros, we're very educated in what we do. I can tell you exactly the science of how to break down a muscle and make you look like this statue. But which iron was I holding? That's what bothers me the most, is I think a lot of people don't even know that was yours.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. Look, I trained at Venice that long, and I probably was just grabbing your weights because that's what I liked better, but not realizing it is you. But it is kind of cool that that's not what you do this for. I think that's probably why I want to more try and get the word out and use my platform to try and speak to people that are kind of uneducated, because it bothers me even more that you don't care about stuff like that. You don't care about being famous. You don't want to be the face of the company. So people like that, I want to work even harder for, because that means that you deserve it even more, rather than the person who puts no work into it and immediately wants to slap their face on every single.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's marketing. So, boy, I've had those battles and talked to people so many times about, I call it smoke and mirror marketing. And so what I love to do more than anything is educate. I love to tell people about what I know and the time I've put in. And I've spent years and years and years developing. I mean, I use one of the best stories I have is the urethane bumper plate. And when I tell people that when I developed the first urethane bumper plate, the industry had never attempted it. And in 2012, I had developed it as a test to, outlast rubber, because rubber was a very short-term product. And I was scratching my head trying to figure out how could I make a weight plate that could withstand constant dropping. And then you had CrossFit people that were using them in parking lots, dropping them on pavement. And I'm trying to figure out in my head, how is this humanly possible? And so what I tell people is the very first one I developed in 2012. And it's important to note that I had already at that time produced probably about 100 million pounds of urethane dumbbells and Olympic plates before I attempted the first urethane bumper. And bumper one in 2012 failed in 30 minutes. So basically it was 20 or 30 drops, 30 minutes. And that's when I said, oh man, how's this ever going to be a thing? And I tell people 4 years later, about $750,000 in testing dollars, rejects, whatever it was, just time. The final product went from the first one failing in 30 minutes to the 4 year later product went 122,000 drops from 8 foot 2 inches tall and cycles of about 4,000 a day. So I caution people when they say, well, and I remind people that the first copy never came out until after 2016. So anybody could trace back and realize that there was never a bumper introduced before the one I introduced. But what's ironic is when I tell people, if you're going to buy the copy, how do you know which one you're getting? Are you getting the 30-minute broken one or the 122,000 drop lifetime bumper? So that's just part of what I live for. Just explaining that. That's all I can do is tell people what I've learned.
I love it.
Yeah. So what's on your horizon coming up as far as the next training, the next shows? What do you got planned?
Well, so I just finished Germany. It was my first show back, and I got third. Andrew Jack won that. I think he got fifth at the Olympia. So I'm not losing to any scrubs by any means. But it was a direct kind of slap in the face of, this is somebody that I had trained with in Dubai. So since I trained with him in Dubai, he's not had any injuries, not had any setbacks, not had to move. And that's where he is if you just stay on it. Mm-hmm. So it was really tough to lose, but it was also just a reminder that if I just keep doing what I'm doing, then I can be where he's at, because that's the best way to do bodybuilding is just no distractions, honestly.
Well, both of those guys were big.
I mean, yeah. But Andrew, I think, is actually the tallest. I think there's a bodybuilder in like Germany or something. He's like 6'4" or something like that. But actually like wins shows and competes, like actually is competitive. Yeah. He's the tallest bodybuilder in the world.
Well, you had opened up my eyes to that. I didn't realize that the majority of all bodybuilders were not tall.
I was even a little bit taller. I was even 6 foot. I'm a little under 6 foot now from all the heavy squats and weight. And it does shrink you, but mostly, and this is the thing that I have to admit, my dad's stopping me from training that young. I think he should have eventually hopped on, go to my shows. I could have learned watching Hunter and Lee Labrada. That's the only other father and son ever in the history of bodybuilding besides me and my dad. So watching them interact with each other. Lee competed in the in the 80s and 90s. So obviously the times are different. Obviously my dad even more 60s and 70s.
Sure.
But still, there's a lot that you can learn from someone who's at least done all the wrong. So watching them and having the relationship there, I was a little bit jealous. But looking back, yes, even though I would like my dad to have been a little bit more supportive of my career, I think the only reason why I'm even able to be as competitive as I am is because of my height and my weight. I'm weighing on stage what people are weighing in their off season or even more. I'm around 280 on stage and I'm about 6 foot. But if you start training when you're 13 years old, you are going to stunt your growth. That is absolutely a fact. I mean, if you're training heavy, for sure, there's no way. And that's exactly why every single bodybuilder is 5'9".
Huh.
They are
interesting.
And on your phone, they look tall. And that's the biggest problem I have with social media right now is that people don't go to shows anymore. Back in the day, there was no social media, so you had to go to the shows or you had the magazines. And a magazine's not going to scale somebody who's shorter and make them look the same height. But when you're making like a post, you just slap them on and you slap them on.
Sure.
So it's a lot different in person to see someone's stature. That's a big thing that people can't understand on social media. So the reason why we're even talking about this is losing to someone like him, who's just such a giant. It's great because I'm also in that same range. I just need to fill out and fix a couple body parts and stuff like that. And so that's what I learned from that show is that I'm there, and it was my first time with a new coach. A lot of guys will do a show with a coach and they don't win, they switch. They do another one, they don't win, they
Change
switch.
The coach out.
And really, it takes time. You got to learn someone's body, especially on this kind of level. Like you can add the wrong amount of sodium 24 hours before your show, and it looks like you're just complete mashed potatoes.
Wow.
So being with the same coach, I actually stayed a little bit too long. Me being sort of amateurs all the way until about a year ago, I learned that maybe I should have just kind of switched things up a little bit, and had nothing to do with that coach. Like Chris Aceto and me are a perfect example that sometimes your body just doesn't react after a while. It has nothing to do with the coach. That guy loves me more than I think he loves me as much as he does his own kids. It's just you add 20 pounds of muscle. The protocol for trying to peak for a show is completely different. The amount of carbs it takes to be able to fill me out. And so this being the first show with a new coach, there was a couple things that we needed to fix. I need to eat a little bit more carbs, maybe a little bit more sodium and stuff like that, like I learned. But I do need to get back in the gym. When I was injured, injuring your shoulder almost affects every single thing except your lower body. And it made me learn a lot. Like you cannot do a bicep. My tricep and my elbow were affected from my shoulder. Obviously you can't train shoulders and chest. And even my left lat, I couldn't do a pull-up. I only did a pull-up, an incline press, and a lat pull down in January. And then I did a show in April, and I only lost that little bit to the top guy in the world. So all I need to do is just get back in the gym, continue doing what I'm doing, and fill those areas out that were a little slagging from my injury. And then I want to try and hop into a show maybe at the end of the summer and then qualify for the Olympia.
Interesting. Well, I wanted to ask you something. You made a comment to me a week or two ago about you couldn't teach someone how to look like you, but you could teach everybody how to not make the mistakes. What was that comment that you?
Yeah, exactly. I can't tell you exactly what is best for you or what's going to be.
But you can tell me what not to do.
I know the for sure is not to do. That's for sure. In the gym, what red flags in relationships? If there is a way to write a book on the guinea pig of doing the wrong things in bodybuilding, I can write that book for sure.
Interesting.
But it takes time, and you get into this, and you have to learn. You have to learn even the supplements that you take. I worked at GNC and Vitamin Shop for majority before I moved to California. And I was all about the supplements, the Intra Shake, the calorie shakes, weight gainers, all of it. And once I actually just set a timer, ate every 2 hours, which your body won't want to do in the beginning. It just fights you, but you just try and eat every 2 hours.
Versus huge meals.
Yeah.
Right? Versus huge meals.
I was trying to do 10,000 calories a day. I was drinking
10,000.
Yeah, 10,000.
Wow.
I looked up all the most unhealthiest places to eat. If you look up the top 10 worst places to eat, it gives you the list, and I would go to those in the numbers of which one was the worst.
Really?
So if you're interested, PF Chang's has got the most calories. Double Whopper's got the most calories. The most calories you can buy at a restaurant is the cheese fries from Chili's. It's 3,000 calories. And exactly, I'm just thinking because I'm a skinny kid. I mean, I was 6 foot tall. My first show was 6 foot tall, 170. It was just bones, it was just rib cage. And I'm just thinking, if I just pound calories like insane, because that's what it says in the Arnold Encyclopedia, you know, you got to do X more calories, then I'm going to be Mr. Olympia in like a few years. But what you just end up doing is you just destroy your intestinal system.
Right.
You have horrible acid reflux, you know, and then exactly, you're so full, you can't even eat in 2 hours.
Oh, yeah.
And so once I actually just started trying to change my eating, that's when I grew the most. I gained so much weight. And that's what I'm saying is that I learned all the supplements, not all of them, majority of them, it's kind of bullshit. It really is. And you can use them when you have to, like I'm working at an expo, I can't get to a meal. A shake is perfect, absolutely. But a shake cannot be a meal replacement. Not if you're trying to get to the Olympia level.
Right.
You want to look good for the beach or your wedding or an event or a party weekend, you know, at the strip. You can do it, absolutely. But not on this competitive level where it's actually quality muscle.
So I'm curious about that then. When you talk about calories, it's funny. I go back far enough with guys like Bill Pearl, and I knew, you know, everybody from Russ Warner to Reg Park was one of the most famous guys around, right?
Of course.
And those guys used to talk about going to the all-you-can-eats and drink tons of beer and eat pizza.
It's carbs.
But the thing is, doesn't the quality of food have to be good, as you're talking about, to grow better muscle, or does it not matter if you're just powering through tons of weights and tons of training?
If you have one of those insane stomachs, look, I've met guys that do eat that and then they don't get messed up. Of course and that's the problem with fitness is you can always find someone to either make your case or show that your case is not right. You know, if I look up on WebMD, you know, what is my case? It's going to tell me I'm dying, you know, and if I want to look up and find something that tells me I'm healthy.
The old internet.
Yeah, I want to find a way where I can do drugs on the weekend, but party, but I have one glass of wine, so it's actually kind of healthy. You can find the statistic that will make you feel better about yourself.
So tequila is the most healthy alcohol.
It
comes
is true.
From a plant.
It is true, right? Exactly.
Right?
So there are guys that can eat, you know, like that. But for me, no, it wasn't the thing to do.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, I guess I always wondered, so when you're training super hard to gain mass, do you have to eat as much as you can eat in general? Or is it quality of food, or is it calories?
It's both. Look, in the off-season, you still have to try and push some calories. I just learned for me, I'm able to be hungrier faster if it's a little bit cleaner. And look, this is just something I realized in the last couple of years. I've been a pro for 10 years and I've been working out 15 years. It's only in the last 2 to 3 years that I even figured this out. And sometimes you kind of have to put your pride aside and just say, you know what, I'm going to do the hard, because it's a lot easier to go to the all-you-can-eat buffet and then, you know, you take a nap after your body's crashing, than to eat the same foods over and over again that are plain, you know? And so me trying to do really what was the easier thing. It's more fun. It's more fun to eat pizza and all these things. And then exactly, like I can look up that these calories are going to turn into muscle, but it's not, it's in the long run, it's not better. But what's the hardest part is trying to figure out how do I do this and how do I do it on my own? Because if I ask my coach, he's gonna say, don't eat it, you know? But for me, I'm a hard gainer. It's really hard for me to gain. So I have to figure out how do I try and get in the calories, get in the quality meals, but then the training. Like if I have a certain kind of meal around a leg day, all you're doing is almost throwing up the whole leg day.
Wow.
So then was those calories worth it? You know?
No.
Or do you have to now change your meals around the gym? Which is true. You need to change the meals before and after the gym. The hardest part with the gym is for people that don't work out, is that if I train long. I do really high volume, very high. So
how long are your workouts generally?
2 hours.
2 hours.
Yeah.
And how many days a week?
Sometimes 7.
Wow.
Yeah. But what I'll do is I consider you do need to take a day off for your nervous system. That's like a thing. You need to listen to your body. I don't believe that you have to do 2 days on, 1 day off, 5 days, take 2 days off. I think once you're at this level, you understand your body.
Right.
But your nervous system absolutely does need a break. But for me, one thing, I didn't get my dad's back. I didn't get his small waist. I didn't get his chest. I didn't get any of the body parts that will help me on bodybuilding, but I got his arms. Arms grew very fast for me when I started training. So my arm day, luckily for me, it's not very hard. and it's not very taxing on my nervous system. So I usually just make arm day my off day. And so that's how I can train 7 days. But then you know what? Sometimes I might wake up and I'm like, I'm beat. And then I just take that day off. Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. I don't think I mentioned this to you before, but I remember seeing a video that Phil Heath had done, and he talked about leave your ego at the door, and he was stressing to people that he uses light dumbbells. He doesn't use super heavy dumbbells. So is that accurate? I mean,
so there's the Phil Heath statistic that anything Phil didn't do, whatever has anything to do with Phil, it just doesn't count, because every now and then there are these anomalies that come through.
The freaks of nature.
Man, it just doesn't even make sense. I did a competition one time, as we're talking about eating bad food. It was a Chicago Pro. I got second place. The guy who got first place walked around the competition eating a whole pizza. He just had a whole pizza to himself. And for people that don't understand with bodybuilding now and today, eating cheese is probably the worst thing that you could eat right before a show. You've pulled all the water out of your body. You're so depleted that dairy is only going to make your stomach explode. It can't digest it. And here's this guy walking around eating this pizza. His name was Michael Lockett. And Phil Heath, I'm sure, can eat whatever he wants, and whatever he wrote down and said this is what he did. If me and you did it, it wouldn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't work for everybody, obviously.
I also have this little theory too, and it'd be interesting to test it out. Is I don't know if anyone's following the Tour de France, right? We had Lance Armstrong, right? He got popped, right, for PEDs. The next guy who won after they got rid of Lance Armstrong was an American, and they took his Tour de France away because he had a hyperbolic chamber, and creating more white blood cells in that. So I have this theory that all the Colorado gyms give that to you naturally. And if you look at all the bodybuilders—
Because of the altitude?
Yeah, it has to. Even just going there on vacation, I'm struggling to breathe. Now imagine you training there every day.
Oh, yeah.
That does do something to you. And if you look at people like Phil, Brett Wilkins, Martin, they're all killing it in the game. And they all came from the same Armburst gym in Colorado. So I even thought about moving there one day, but I think Vegas is the spot for me.
That's interesting. You know, I wanted to ask you too, since we kind of have reconnected over, very recently, and then I brought it to your attention that you had been using my products in one of the local gyms called Fitness here in Henderson. Was there anything that stood out to you? Do you remember like immediately noticing something? Because when you first started training, and then we met shortly after, and then I started jogging your memory about all the things that maybe you remembered running into me in one way, shape, or form. So I was just curious if anything stood out.
I think the thing that initially stood out, because the durability, of course, like when I'm deadlifting like 6 plates, when you put it back down and you don't feel like it's going to fall on you or fall on someone else, and also the amount of noise. I don't mind making noise, but like at a gym like Cold Fitness, there's a lot of just regular people at the gym.
Right.
I'm not that guy in the gym. I already make a lot of noise and I already grab a lot of attention, but I actually don't like it. I'm probably one of the rarest bodybuilders. I hate attention. You're never going to see me with my shirt off. So the fact that I could train with that amount of weight and it doesn't make the whole gym stop what they're doing, because exactly, weights are either falling off,
the wiggling, the vibration.
Right, exactly. My biggest thing is that, yeah, the weights just fall off and they might bounce and hit someone. But the best part was actually the notches of where I could set it at. And again, going back to my height, I also can't find a workout partner that I can work out with where I'm not having to constantly change the adjustments. It's just part of it. It is what it is. But if I can set and do rack pulls at my perfect level, it just doesn't exist. I always have to put something underneath, raise it up a little bit, raise me up a little bit. And the fact that I'm just able to walk into that rack, put the notch on there, and then check it. It wasn't good. Move it another one, and it was perfect.
Ease of adjustments.
That's what I noticed right away.
Yeah.
But once I started using the dumbbells, it's really hard to explain to people that don't really train with anything past the 130s. Once you get on that kind of level, you have to change the handle. It's just going to bend, and that's usually what ends up happening. You have to make the handle a little bit thicker, which I hate. I hate really thick handles.
Really interesting.
Because I'm not a power lifter. Power lifters love those Coke can handles,
Yeah.
or even the ones that swivel.
Yeah, those are I never had anybody like those.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just a small amount of powerlifters that really enjoy that, because then they can use that in their lifts. But I'm trying to train to make my body look good. Like I always tell people all the time, do you want to lift 500 pounds, or do you want to look like you lift 500 pounds? Because that's what a bodybuilder is.
Good point.
And a lot of times the guys who can lift 500 pounds, they don't look like they can.
Right.
So that was the biggest thing, is that when I was able to use the dumbbells for presses especially, and the handle was still a little bit smaller for me to grip. I have a problem too with my wrist just from playing football. I can't hold things without my Versa grips. I have to use my straps. But the dumbbells I can hold without my strap.
Because of the size of the handle.
The size of the handle.
It's interesting. Again, there's so many people that are confused and they follow. Most people go with a larger handle to mitigate bending. So that's a whole science in itself. That's why, that's a whole nother subject in an episode, the building of the dumbbell, how to build one that stays together, the size of the handle, the type of the steel. There's so much that goes into that, which is why, again, I try to educate people and say, you don't learn this stuff overnight. But, part of my intrigue with you is that I do so well with passionate people. Those are the people that I attract. I get really frustrated when I'm talking to people that have zero knowledge. They follow what everybody else does. And I've always tried to be a leader in one way or another. So I love people I love educated, or those that want to be educated. So I think it's a good marriage. And no, it's just, I see so much synergy here that I think we've got a lot of fun stuff that we can do together for sure going forward.
Yeah, I think I just probably have like old soul, old blood in me. I think that's probably also part of what it is because I clash with my generation all the time, because they started bodybuilding with social media. I started bodybuilding, there was no social media. And so because I grew up in the sport, even though I wasn't competing, even working out, I still had to go to all the shows. Even if I was just like coloring on my coloring book at my dad's booth, I, some way or another, have been to almost every single Mr. Olympia in my whole life. Wow. Even when they would travel, for people who don't know, they used to go to Chicago, they were in Atlanta, they were in other countries. If you watch Pumping Iron, they're in South Africa. Yeah. And so I think I have that in me. And I think that that's where we connect for sure. Because the people that are in my generation, I cannot stand talking to them. They are just ridiculous. And like what the last thing that you just said is, even if you don't have the knowledge, why don't you want to learn? And this, like, I always feel like there's always something I can learn, even if it's learning something not to do, like we talked about. No doubt. And I think this generation is just so set on, one, they're trying to figure out, I would say the biggest thing that I have a problem with today is people trying to figure out the fastest way to get something with doing the least amount of work. Without
putting in the dues?
Yeah. And then they say that they already know everything. Yeah. They don't need to learn anymore. You can't show them anything that they could use or utilize. And I think that's definitely a new generation type of thing, where it's like, I'm capped out on knowledge, when I think older generations are like a sponge. Like, why would I ever have a problem with someone showing me something, new?
Open mind. I've always felt that way. You can always learn something. But a lot of people are, they feel inferior when they're around somebody that they think is smarter than them. It's like, I love that. I love to meet people that are as smart as humanly possible. It's the only way to collaborate.
Yeah,
right?
For sure. I love being stimulated with intellect. Absolutely. And you'll see people that are like, they get into the gym and they always have the broccoli hair. They're the same looking guys. And you know what they want to do? They want to do an isolation kind of lat pull down one arm, where they're trying to figure out the exact angle. But then you ask them to do a lat pull down or a pull up, and they have no idea how to do it.
A correct one.
Right. So we're trying to skip to doing things. That's what I tell people all the time too. Don't watch any videos of me training now to figure out how to help you. Because the majority of the time, the people that are pro bodybuilders, especially open, I always keep saying open, because open is a weight limit that it's just, there's no cap. I was even talking to you about it the other day, and you didn't know that either, that open class, there's no weight class. You could just weigh any amount. You could be Ronnie Coleman, 300 pounds on stage. And so you trying to like figure out how to do something and you don't even know how to do the movement right. It's just like, why are you not trying to do the fundamentals? Sometimes a bent over barbell row is the best thing that you should be doing. Trying to do some kind of variation of it because you saw some YouTuber do it, that's okay. That's fine. But now if you're watching like me or like Ronnie Coleman training something, majority of the time, if you see me training, I'm training something I don't have because I get on stage and the judges say, you lost this show because you don't have this lower lat.
Right.
So now when I'm doing something, I'm actually doing something to try and target that. When if you're looking at me and you're like, man, your width is my favorite part about you, the exercise I'm doing have nothing to do with it. I already have that. So watching professionals, especially when they're older in age, is the last people you should be watching. Right. Watch it for motivation, watch it for excitement. I do the same thing, but there's never a time that I was watching Ronnie Coleman's back workout and I'm like, that's what I'm going to do. Because a lot of times if you look at guys like, I bought Dexter Jackson's DVD. Dexter Jackson's probably got like the best abs, besides like probably Sean Ray. And the guy I actually lost to in Germany, they're saying he's probably got the best abs and thigh shot. And he didn't even do abs one time in the whole DVD. I bought this so I could have Dexter Jackson abs, and he didn't do them once.
And he didn't show them to you.
But it's because I bet you when he first started training, that's all he did. He did the push-ups and abs combo like a lot of bodybuilders did back in the 80s. And that's all they would just do, whatever they had around the house. And then now that you have those muscles, you just have to do maintenance on them every now and then. Right. Get some blood in them. But they're already, if anything, like with me, my arms are so overpowering that it makes my chest and shoulders look worse. So even if I went in and did arms, and my chest and shoulders didn't get worse, by me doing arms, I made them look worse. The symmetry and proportion part of bodybuilding is a very tricky part because when you first get into training, everything grows. Right. It doesn't matter. And that's why a lot of people say to themselves, well, what I'm doing is working. You really could have just picked that up and put it down on the floor over and over again, and you were bound to gain some kind of muscle.
Something.
So, but that's the hardest part is trying to figure out, is this what I should be doing? Is this what they did to get that body part? This guy has Tom Platz has insane legs, right? He's doing this crazy drop set. If you do that, you're probably gonna get injured. And so that's the tricky part of, trying to educate people and make them understand that, yes, okay, you like this body part, but what you're watching isn't how they got it.
Right. Or do what works for you. It's interesting. I would say in close, something that's really cool where I see the industry going now, which excites me, is there's a lot of these guys online that you can tell the pros from the people that are just trying to make money. And you can see that a lot of it these days is focusing on exercise science and the true science and study of actual training and what works. And so for me, I like that when you talk about learning from people. I'm excited because I'm a product builder. I build product. I don't train, but I'm neurotic for quality and building bulletproof product that'll last 30 years in a Gold's Gym Venice. So I love listening to these guys that are interested in what I do and bring me ideas of asking me to help them bring those products to life. And I'm learning about different strength curves and things that work today that people would have never done years ago. So, but no, it was awesome. I really appreciate you on the team. I mean, really, really excited about a lot of fun stuff ahead. And we'll do a lot more of these going forward. For those of you that tuned in, be sure to like and subscribe, follow us on Instagram, and keep an eye on Sergio here as he climbs that ladder and wins that Olympia.
Just the beginning.